And welcome back to Fresh Outlook. I'm TWB. We've been talking about the latest on the bombings in Boston, so we thought we'd examine the media coverage of the event. How do you rate the coverage? Was it accurate? Was it irresponsible? A lot of talk about this. I want to get back to Liam Day. He's a Boston resident joining us via Skype. He's also the Director of Youth Development and Health Promotion at Boston Public Health Commission. Liam, are you with us?
I am.
Great. Curious, as a Boston resident, there's been a lot of talk about the media coverage over the past 5 days. What was your take on the media coverage as a Boston resident?
It was mixed. There were some outlets, and I hate to say it, the New York Post did not shine this week at
Tell
all.
us why. Tell us why, because not everyone is familiar with the New York Post.
Yeah. They ran a report early on after the bombings on Monday that 12 people had been killed, and that was inaccurate. They put the picture of, a young man on its cover as a suspect who turned out not to be a suspect. It got quite a bit wrong during the week. They were not the only outlet, though, that did that. And there did seem to be a constant race on to be first in reporting information rather than being focused on reporting accurate information.
I'm curious, as a Boston resident, what outlet do you watch? Do you watch a local station in Boston, or do you watch one of the national outlets?
So I actually followed Twitter most, because by following Twitter most, I could get a number of different outlets almost instantly, and almost in that way kind of filter out inaccurate information. I could tell by what was coming into my feed what was aggregating it as being most accurate. Right,
and I'm glad you brought up Twitter, because even last night, as we were watching this manhunt unfold moment by moment, I believe it was the Boston Police Department that announced via Twitter, "We got him." And I happened to be watching one of the national outlets, and that was their source. We just got a tweet from the Boston Police Department. And I said, wow, look at the world we live in, because I guess that's the quickest, easiest way to disseminate information. A press person from the Boston Police Department doesn't need to call all the outlets. You just type it, boom, and everyone gets it. It really is incredible. What do you think, Yohuru?
I thought it was amazing. And one of the things that was great about the use of Twitter by the police was to keep the public informed. So you're looking at something like that and you're going, this is wonderful. I think the news outlets, in some sense, have to view Twitter as an ally, because you are getting first-person eyewitness accounts at the time. So there's this dynamic coverage that's taking place. That was positive in some cases. I think, as Liam indicates, in some instances it turned out to be negative, because there was some problematic reports that were floated that then wound their way into the mainstream press. Right,
and there's been a lot of talk about these inaccurate reportings by the press. Jackie, as a media expert, why do you think there are so many erroneous stories? Is this just to be first, no matter if it's wrong? We just want to be the first one?
Well, yeah, that's the major thing that's going on. Everybody wants a scoop on that story. Second thing that's going on is that everybody wanted to identify who the bad guys were in this case. The bad thing that was going on, I'd call it the ugly thing that was going on from tweets, from the major media outlets, was that they were looking to identify this person. He turned out to be, according to CNN, a dark-skinned person.
Right, you kept hearing that over and over.
Liam got it right. New York Post really dropped the ball on this. They were horrible. You can tell the best use of the New York Post is putting it under your puppy on your morning walk. That's the only good thing I can say about it.
What do you think, though? What are the ramifications for, as a media analyst, what's going on in the New York Post newsroom? Are heads rolling? Are people getting fired so that this doesn't happen again? Or are they not fazed by it?
This is not the first time Rupert Murdoch's New York Post has made erroneous comments like this. They've done it before, and frankly, the other outlets that Murdoch has, I mean, remember the phone hacking scandal that they had, etc. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. I mean, they're getting real bad blowback right now.
Because CNN also was inaccurately, I saw this, they got killed online. I don't know if you saw it on, I think it was on BuzzFeed, but they showed a minute-by-minute account with John King and Chris Cuomo, and they wrote verbatim everything they had said on Anderson Cooper, and an arrest was made, and then it wasn't, and then they backtracked. I mean, it really is just disgraceful. I mean, what's your reaction to that?
I love the word disgraceful, because what I saw is that they were trying to paint a profile of this bad person. This bad person was dark skinned, according to CNN. MSNBC, Chris Matthews said, look at these videos. Can we tell what ethnicity this man is from?
Right.
Perhaps Yemen. And even online and the publications, they were saying that the bomb, the pressure cooker bomb that had nails in it and ball bearings, this was a jihadist hallmark.
Right.
Well, those bombs have been around since the 70s.
Right.
Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, used it. So what I saw was that they were trying to place this Islamic terrorist, this is the person we're looking for, whether he is guilty or not.
Right.
And that is erroneous. It is not responsible journalism.
Yeah, and it's just about getting the fear factor.
Exactly.
What do you think, Dee Dee?
Well, I think Twitter, actually, even though very much an ally and a big fan, and you know, Twitter beats the news every time. I mean, because you look at the Twitter feed, and I'm sure that they've got someone monitoring now because they have to, because it's the quickest resource. It's really amazing. Times have changed in the media, and I think that that's a big part of it. The pressure is there. They're pushing, and they're being irresponsible. You cannot say that an individual is a suspect if they're not. I mean, they were totally wrong. So I think someone should be fired in that case. And it wasn't just Rupert Murdoch, it was everyone. Everyone had mistakes across the board, and they shouldn't feel the pressure. They have to have some accuracy and integrity. You cannot just blame someone, because this poor kid now, for the rest of his life, is going to be identified with
but
it.
I just
It's
think
unfair.
there should be some sort of checks and balances when CNN and
Absolutely.
New York Post, they get it wrong. There needs to be something in place, because this is just going to keep happening.
We should learn from this situation, because I don't remember one being like this at all. I don't know about you all, but I do not remember a press situation being the intensity of this and a lot of erroneous things said.
Right.
And I think Twitter is the pressure on it, but it's a good and it's a bad thing.
Right, but you have to think about the people that are being targeted, because like we mentioned, you know, these outlets giving descriptors as dark-skinned or, you know, black being put forward. How do you think this kind of reporting, Yohuru, sort of endangers Muslims or the black communities of color? Because sure, they're getting it wrong, but there's still people discussed as they're getting it wrong.
There's a long history of this, unfortunately, in this country, and race is a third rail in American politics. And when we talk about the Muslim community and how this plays out in terms of racial profiling, which we saw in the aftermath of 9/11, we should all be concerned about this. I think the coverage in that regard was egregious, and I do agree that there should be a response. The problem is that Americans have become comfortable with this conversation.
Right.
And part of this is a public education campaign, again, to deal with this issue, this perception that everyone who practices Islam or is a Muslim in some way is some potential terrorist. That's a problem. And I saw that time after time again this week from credible news sources. That's serious.
How does it endanger Muslim communities and community? I mean, when this happens, when this precedent is set?
Very much so. I feel for this 17-year-old young man, because quite frankly, when he says he's afraid to go outside, I believe that.
Terrible,
Right.
terrible.
How on earth can you function? I mean,
Well, look, there was a woman, she's a medical doctor in Boston. She was attacked because she was wearing a hijab. And the attacker said, we're not going to let you do this to us.
right. So where do we go from here then? How do we fix this problem? I mean, anyone have any ideas? Leon, let's bring you back into the mix. I mean, given the misreporting, the misfiring on identifying these suspects from the media, what do we do differently next time, and how do we fix it?
You know, part of it is this is driven by the marketplace, you know, and unless the market, you know, penalizes the Post or CNN by, you know, a lower readership or lower, you know, viewership, that probably isn't going to change. You know, and whether there can be editorial controls put in place, I don't know.
Right, right.
Our society does seem to be accelerating. News is clearly accelerating. I think this is going to be the new normal, so to speak, in news reporting.
Right. The new normal, just sort of reporting on minority groups before we know, or just sort of, are you saying misreporting, or a combination of both?
I was focusing more on the misreporting than I was on the reporting of minority folks. You know, that I think there's always going to be a race to be first, and I'm not sure there's anything that we're really going to be able to do about it.
Right. What do you guys think? I mean, how do we fix this? Let's start with final thoughts, Jackie.
We're going to have to change the whole system. I think it is the new normal. I did see a little bit this time where they would say, well, it's a dark-skinned person. However, we don't know yet. Yeah, they were qualifying their answer.
Right.
You know, however, the whole system is set up now that the news outlet has to make a profit, and doing this dramatization, finding the bad
fear
guy,
factor,
the
yep.
fear factor, is how they're making a profit.
They're doing that, but also you'll hear more and more with all these missteps, with the misreporting. We're hearing, we don't know for sure. This is what we're hearing, but we want to emphasize that we don't know for sure. So I mean, I think some outlets are learning from the CNN, because from CNN they're just trying to cover themselves for when they get sort of charged with misreporting. Oh, but we said we weren't sure. So what do you think, Yohuru?
The age of television where Mike Wallace, or even a decade ago Wolf Blitzer, reported to the American people and we were confident that what we were getting was news sources that have been vetted, those days are gone. Twitter and technology have changed that. And so I think what we'll see is an adjustment, hopefully a correction in the direction of news agencies being more responsible in what they're reporting. Hopefully this incident, if it serves any purpose, will get the media to think concretely about how to do that.
Right.
Yes, and we're moving at warp speed. It is so much different now, and we just have to be responsible. It's very important. I mean, I hope that every news outlet takes a look at this and examines what they did and what they didn't correctly, and they improve upon it.
Right, but I do think Yohuru brings up a good point. You know, no longer do we have the days of the voice of reason, you know, the voice of Tom Brokaw, the voice of, you know, Mike Wallace. Well, the voice is Twitter. I mean,
it's almost like being first, whether it's right or wrong, and they'll talk about it later. And
because
that's not right.
Unfortunately, you only had 3 people in America who could disseminate the information. You know, the police
networks.
Departments called the 3
now
networks,
it's
and that
everybody.
was it.
Yeah.
There's
We have
no
the whole world
calling.
doing it.
There's a click send, and that's it. You
Right,
know?
and if more people tune into you, congratulations.
Right.
You win in the ratings.
Right. So anyway,
with Twitter, it's a split second.
Yeah, so it goes on. We got to take a quick break. When we continue on Fresh Outlook, we continue the conversation regarding the bombings in Boston, specifically the psychological toll. We'll look at that angle next. Stay with us.